Returning to the government office was a frustrating experience for Liam and Sarah. They had hoped that everything would go smoothly this time, but as they entered the large stone building again, their hopes were dashed. The place was as cold and impersonal as before, and it took them a while to find the right desk. This time, the woman at the desk was different. She was younger, with a stern look on her face. She glanced at the photographs and then at the form they had filled out. "You filled out the form wrong," she said, pointing to the page. "You need to make sure it's filled in properly before I can help you." Liam and Sarah stood there, unsure of what to do. The form was long and confusing, full of questions they didn't understand. They had filled it out as best as they could, but it was clear they had missed something. The young woman barely looked at them before shaking her head. "This is unacceptable," she said, her tone dismissive. "You'll need to redo the form. Go back to the office and fill it out correctly. Without it, I can't help you." Frustration built up inside Liam, and he clenched his fists at his sides. "But we've done everything you asked. The photograph, the form. Why can't you just give us the identity card?" The woman didn't respond, only gave them a cold stare. "You'll have to do it right. Come back when it's done properly." Liam and Sarah left the government office once again, both feeling defeated. It was as if everything was stacked against them. They had come so far, but there were still so many obstacles. How many more trips would it take? How many more forms and photographs? "I don't understand," Sarah said softly as they walked down the street. "Why is it so hard?" Liam didn't have an answer. All he knew was that they couldn't give up. They had to keep going. For Tom, for the farm, for their future. The next day, Liam and Sarah returned to the government office, prepared to fill out the form again. This time, they were more careful, double-checking every line and making sure everything was filled out correctly. They hoped that it would be the last obstacle in their path. As they walked back toward the government office, feeling tired but determined, they came across a man standing on the street corner. He was well-dressed, wearing a suit and tie that made him stand out among the busy crowds. He was talking to a group of people, but when he saw Liam and Sarah, he looked up and smiled warmly. "Good day," the man said, approaching them. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. You look like you're in a bit of trouble." Liam and Sarah exchanged a glance, unsure of what to make of the stranger. "We are," Liam admitted. "We've been trying to get our son's money from the post office, but it's been difficult. They keep telling us we need more papers, more forms. It's been exhausting." The man's eyes softened with understanding. "I see. Well, I might be able to help you with that." Liam looked at him, surprised. "You can?" The man nodded. "I know the people at the post office. I can speak with them on your behalf and make sure everything is sorted out. I know how these things work." "Who are you?" Sarah asked, her voice cautious. "I'm Mr. Morris," the man said. "I work in business here in the city. I'm happy to help if I can." Liam and Sarah were unsure, but they didn't have many options left. They had been to the post office so many times, only to be turned away. Maybe this man, with his connections, could help them in a way they couldn't do on their own. "Thank you," Liam said, his voice full of hope. "We would be grateful for your help." Mr. Morris smiled and gestured for them to follow him. He led them to the post office, and when they arrived, he walked directly to the front of the line, bypassing the crowd. He spoke briefly to the post office officials, and soon they handed over the money. Tom's $200. Liam and Sarah were shocked and overwhelmed. Not only had they gotten the money, but Mr. Morris had gone above and beyond, making sure they were treated with respect. He handed the money to Liam, adding a few extra bills. "Here you go," Mr. Morris said. "This should help with your journey. I'm glad I could help." Liam and Sarah thanked him profusely, but Mr. Morris only smiled and waved. "It was my pleasure. Take care now, and I hope your son does well." As Mr. Morris disappeared into the busy street, Liam and Sarah stood there, holding the money in their hands. It was a strange feeling, both relief and disbelief. "We finally have it," Sarah said, her voice soft with emotion. Liam nodded. "Yes, we do. And now we can go home." The journey back to the village was different this time. The weight of the money they carried was not just physical, but emotional. After all the challenges they had faced, the hardships they had endured, and the endless trips to the town, they finally had what they had set out to get. Tom's money. It felt like a victory, but also like the end of a long battle. As Liam and Sarah walked back to their farm, the familiar surroundings of their village began to ease their minds. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows over the dirt road, and the village houses, their small homes made of wood and stone, looked warm and comforting. It felt like a long time since they had left, even though it had only been a few days. The simple life they had known for so long now felt more precious than ever. When they reached their cottage, Sarah immediately set about making a simple meal. She was tired from the long journey, but glad to be home. fire crackled in the small stove as the smell of cooking filled the air. Liam sat down at the table, the money still in his pocket. He looked at Sarah, who was moving around the kitchen, her movements graceful but tired. "We've made it," he said softly. "We've finally made it." Sarah smiled at him, though her eyes were filled with emotion. "Yes, it wasn't easy, but we did it." They ate their meal in silence, both of them lost in thought. Liam kept thinking about how much effort they had put into getting this money, how much they had to go through just to get to this point. But now, with the money in hand, they could finally make the repairs to the farm, buy new tools, and make life a little easier for themselves. After dinner, as the fire slowly burned down to embers, Liam wrote a letter to Tom. He told his son everything that had happened, how difficult it had been to collect the money, but how thankful they were. He promised that the money would be put to good use, fixing up the farm and taking care of the things that needed attention. "I'll send this letter tomorrow," Liam said, folding the paper and placing it by the door. He couldn't wait to send the news to Tom. As they sat together, the weight of their journey finally started to lift. They had made it through the worst of it, and now they could look forward to a better future, thanks to their son's generosity. In the days that followed, life on the farm started to change. The repairs that had been needed for so long were finally taken care of. The roof that leaked during the rainstorms was patched up. The fences that had fallen into disrepair were mended, and the old, worn-out tools that had been passed down through generations were replaced with new ones. Liam and Sarah worked together, their spirits lifted by the success of their mission. They could now focus on the future instead of worrying about what needed fixing. The farm looked better, and so did their lives. They were able to sell more crops, which meant they had more to eat and more to sell at the market. The improvements to the farm were not just about making things easier. They were about bringing hope back into their lives. One afternoon, as Liam was finishing his work in the fields, he saw a figure coming down the road. It was Mr. Green, the village shopkeeper, walking toward him with a smile on his face. "Liam, I heard the good news," Mr. Green called out, his voice warm and friendly. Liam stood up from his work and wiped the sweat from his brow. "Yes, we finally did it. Tom sent us the money, and we've been able to fix the farm." Mr. Green chuckled. "I knew you'd get there. You're both strong people. It took a little time, but in the end, you got the help you needed." Liam smiled. "It wasn't easy, but we're grateful. We couldn't have done it without your advice." "Well, you did most of the hard work," Mr. Green said with a wink. "But I'm happy to see things turning around for you." Liam nodded, Looking around the farm, the fields were green, the crops were thriving, and the animals were healthy. Everything seemed to be falling into place. Later that evening, after the work was done and the sun had set, Liam and Sarah sat on their porch, watching the stars appear in the dark sky. They talked about the future, about the farm, about Tom, and about their life together. For the first time in a long while, they felt at peace. The journey had been difficult, but it had brought them closer together, and it had brought them a sense of hope they hadn't known in a long time. "We did it, Sarah," Liam said, his voice quiet but full of pride. "We did it for Tom and for ourselves." Sarah smiled and took his hand. "Yes, we did. And now we can look forward to a better life." As they sat together, they knew that the money from Tom was just the beginning. With the help of their community, their determination, and a little bit of luck, they had been able to turn their lives around. They had faced challenges, but they had overcome them. They had learned that no matter how hard things seemed, there was always a way forward, as long as they had each other. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The story of Liam and Sarah is a simple one, but it carries with it a powerful message. It is a story about the importance of family, the strength that comes from working together, and the value of persistence in the face of hardship. Through their journey, they learned that even when things seem impossible, help can come from unexpected places, and with determination, they could overcome any obstacle. As the story ends, Liam and Sarah are not only able to improve their lives on the farm, but also learn to appreciate the simple joys of living together, working together, and supporting each other. They are ready to face whatever the future brings, knowing that they can overcome anything as long as they are together.